Welcome to Thoorin's YouTube channel, the godfather of all my fellow gingers.
If your nemesis is highly priced energy drinks, then Gamersup's is the drink for you. I'm a fanatic about it, and one of the reasons I might get mad, but I aren't lying around all day, is it lasts so long and tastes great. So whether you're a self-made man like me, or you're just tired of having games where you're reckless, you can get 10% off your order of Gamersup's, or anything on the store, with the code Thorin, Thorin, at gamesups.gg. By the way, if you do indeed order, remember to add in some free samples so you can try a few other flavours. Now, Nemesis, the former Fnatic mid laner and a long time ago played in Mad Lions, obviously, and since then has been, streamer for Gen G. And by the way, he's actually streamed at this point in time longer than he was ever in LEC. He was just in LEC for 2 years. He made a video right after the LEC final where someone asked him, like, what do you think about the final or whatever? And he basically says, I mean, I've got the quote written down. He put, the problem that Fnatic have, this part I'm going off memory, was like the same problem everyone in LEC has except G2. By the way, what an insane concept. Everyone except G2's staff is just incompetent. The whole orgs are incompetent. Just completely incompetent. Not just pick the wrong player, just completely incompetent. And so, like, you even know how the finance works. But okay. He goes, they have incompetent people, this is Fnatic, hired in positions that they are not qualified for. I'd love to know what he thinks qualified someone, by the way. It'll just be some dumb shit like you talk to him and they know the game like he does. So, the whole org, he said. The whole org! By the way, he was just a fucking mid laner. We are aware of that, right? He's just a guy who played mid lane in the LEC for 2 years. Oh, let me guess, did you talk to LS and Joe Marsh? Does that make you some sort of genius about business now or something? And then he basically said that the problem is they pulled together a random roster because these people aren't qualified for their positions. So, okay, let's get into this. This video is called Nemesis and G2's Greener Grass because I've never seen a worse example of a phenomenon that isn't just Nemesis, by the way. It's everyone who isn't in teams like G2. Funnily enough, it's actually Nemesis. Everyone who's not a G2 and Fnatic, but we can get to that. It's not even just in League. It's every game. What happens is the players who aren't the ones winning in the dominant team or the biggest orgs just assume everything's awesome and better and none of the major problems and annoying things to them are going on there. And in his case, obviously he was there for 2 years, so presumably he's also speculating based on things that happened to him, or he perceives as happened to him, or he perceives as being unfair. And it happened to him, by the way, it was a clusterfuck the years there, but that'll be for another video one of these days, because I can actually get those stories. Spoiler, I have most of them already, even though he imagines I can't. By the way, quick detail, just a random tangent. Nemesis used to say, like when I would talk about him, or I did a video about him, like, how could he know this? You'd have to be in the team to know that. And then he then spent longer than his LEC career speculating on teams he's not in, and quite frankly, he'd have to do the same thing I did, ask people in the team and get the information and trust some of it is true. So another example, by the way, of how what's good for the goose is good for the gander, but not in his case, So let's get into it. The worst thing about clowns like this guy is they just put G2 on this ridiculous pedestal up here. By the way, you know G2 in CSGO, CS2 rather, isn't like this. You know G2 in certain other games like Valorant isn't like this. But magically in League, they're just geniuses. The whole org. The whole org! The CEO, the fucking people doing the business deals, the guy doing the marketing, the guy getting all the fucking sponsors, the guy figuring out where you're... Fucking hell, just because you played in a League of Legends team, homie. So what happens is... Because right now, G2's the mega dominant org in Europe, and Fnatic hasn't won in a billion years, even though, by the way, how did Mad Lions nick those 3 titles? How, in your era, by the way, how did 2 of them? How did Rogue win 1? How did it happen? Oh, they're all incompetent, and they have worse players. They do, by the way. They do have worse players. They even have worse staff, I'd agree. They're not incompetent, though, across the board, though, right? At least not in some of the times when they won. So what really happens is, because he lost to them, and because people like him lose to these teams, they just think, it's because it can't be that they, like, the other players better than me, or, like, better than the teammates that I like. So it's got to be the org, like the coach, and then they didn't get one of the players I thought I wanted, by the way. In the year 2022, guys, G2 still won a title and almost won 2 and went to all the international tournaments with Flackid and fucking Targamas. Like, are we just going to pretend they're like the gods of the fucking game? Like, they don't always get the players they want. There was some massive names. They could have had Viper, by the way. They could have had Hansama, potentially. Obviously, there was also a world where certain other people may or may not have been in the team. Anyway, you get the point. So, they just imagine this, even though in doing so, and especially if you blame the org, what you do then is, I guess he sort of, in this sense, looped it back in by saying the random roster. But I noticed he didn't call him out by name. Notice he didn't call your boy Humanoid out for being way worse than Caps. He didn't call out fucking Noah for being a bum at ADC. It's weird how the call-outs never come for certain players. You had the chance to do it right there. In fact, it would make a stronger point if you just said, oh, it's this player. Why did I sign this player when he hasn't been good for like 2 splits? Or why is Humanoid still there, the giant contract? He's doing? No. Let's not talk about that, right? So what happens is you ignore that they have better players. I mean, I think G2 across the board has better players. The only player who's better on Fnatic than G2 is Razork. That's it. And then he, quite frankly, doesn't have certain... I think he needs like essentially like a really good English language speaking support player to do some of the calls at the end of the game to help him, but he doesn't have that. Then you have, could have kept Trimby though, couldn't you? So, see, I'm not totally against the idea, but this is such ridiculous hyperbole. They're totally incompetent and unqualified for anything they're doing. Look at the fucking track record, the resume, how many times they have to make the finals. They're even doing it where me and you agree this roster isn't even that good, but they're still making all the finals. Fucking hell, mate. And they can't, yeah, but just everyone else is bad and incompetent too. Do you get a sense, by the way, about why this guy's career didn't end up bringing him any LEC championships, despite having some fabulous players, all LEC talent across the board and the rest of the squad? Oh, let me guess, every G2 player was better the whole time. The whole time, even when perks were all swapped, and even when Caps was a bomb right up until the final, until a certain incident, which I'll get to in a future video. You even beat them in your upper bracket. Anyway, whatever. Maybe if you hadn't got clowned on by perks, mate. So, let's go back into this. Then let's add, they've got better players on G2. They have more money to spend, by the way. They have Caps as a draw, so someone might even join for less money, or just wants to join anyway to play with Caps and win, because dude just wins. They have success constantly in officials and in scrims. So as a result, by the way, that's going to squash beef, soothe tensions. You're just not getting the flare-ups you get in other teams where we have the bad week, the bad meta read, the bad split, that one guy underperforming really, really badly. They even win like a billion scrims. They have every reason. Let me guess, the scrims, all that's just because like the staff are geniuses, and then they're also geniuses getting the money, and then they got the money, so they got the players. Give me a break. Like no one knew I could be this good. No one knew that it would work out this way. I mean, where was your video saying it would be? And every single goes, give me a fucking break. You know what I mean? Then you have this factor that, by the way, it's not just having Caps. If you have Caps and Mickey X, both in scrims and officials, you are going to quite literally win games in the mid-game through magic that these two players can do with their feel and their read for the game that you are supposed to lose in both officials and in scrims. So also, even in bad games, they're just redeeming you, saving you, and then it's not a big deal. Everyone goes, we better not do those same problems again, but hey, at least we won the game. High five, G2 on 3, and then let's fucking go. You know, I've heard the stories of what it was like in Fnatic, mate. Then let's also consider this, right? They don't have those issues you're thinking of from your time in teams or hearing stories from other teams. You know why? You aren't in their team. Because I'll tell you what, from the stories I've heard, if you joined their team, you'd both see the issues and be part of them. That's hilarious. Do you think Caps causes the issues you have, or has the attitude you have, or synergizes with other teammates, or gets sulky and doesn't talk to them, or has issues with them, or I can't play your way? I've seen Caps like tank the fucking draft and play stupid ass champions just to help other lanes, or his jungler, or the support, or whatever the fuck. Even though it's like, bro, you could just pick the meta champion and either carry and lose or carry and win. Like, why would you do that? You're Caps. That's the difference. You think you're Nemesis, but he doesn't necessarily always think he's Caps if it goes for the team, you know. So, you know, like when you were in Fnatic. Remember I said you'd be part of the issues? You know, like when you were in Fnatic, the greatest org in EU history prior to you joining them. You are aware of that, right? They used to win the LCS, like every year or two. They had like constantly, like, are you fucking kidding me? Mate, it's people like you that helped tank that. Not totally. Like you had that one split. I actually thought you should have won that spring split, by the way. But whatever. That's the way it goes. Now, are we just going to ignore that 2021 happened when they had the best possible roster in G2 and they got no titles, no finals, and no international tournaments? And by the way, they were paying insane money for that. Isn't that incompetence? Or how about when Caps, they had to go supernova and go way above the level you'd expect in the spring of 2022. Otherwise, they just would have come be like the third best team that split and wouldn't have made MSI. And by the way, they didn't even win in summer anyway when they were the best team. And then at Worlds and MSI, they were pretty much irrelevant too. We're just ignoring all that. Is there no incompetence ever infers that? Is that just players now that do all that stuff? Which is it? Do the players just do everything? Or does the org doing something and fuck up all the... Give me a break, you know what I mean? And yet you can't call anyone out, okay. Like, which do you want? Do you want the results? Because they didn't have them in those years. They had one title out those 2 years, by the way. Or do you want awesome org stuff? Because sometimes you can have awesome... I would bet the org was awesome in 2022. I bet Flacken was really cool. I bet Tagamus was chilling because he wasn't having the problems he was having elsewhere. But I'll tell you what, they didn't have the results the same way. Like, by the way, that team, by the logic of what you're talking about now, if Fnatic win season finals, wouldn't that be quite similar to kind of what G2 did in that year overall? Like, not that much beyond that and nothing really internationally. So the problem I have is this is a loser's mentality. You had a Fnatic team rammed with all LEC talent, but you made, by the way, you made finals in 3 out of the 4 splits, and quite frankly, that Origin one was just because of like side laning and shit, wasn't it? You went to Worlds both fucking years. Bro, let me guess, were they incompetent in your years too? Fucking hell, do you know how hard that is as an org to do all those things? Even the lineup they made that you were in was pretty good. Like even some of the players I actually ended up thinking, well, that's sort of underrated. It sort of worked out better than I even imagined. The problem is, like I say, in general, there's a kind of person where every time they lose, it's someone else's fault. Someone else had an advantage. Someone else is there. How about fuck all that? How about just, are you a good enough player? Are these good enough players in general? Maybe give players credit for winning and also give players credit, or maybe diss them rather when they do badly. That seems fair to me, even though, yes, it'd be nice to know bigger org stuff. I don't think you know the bigger org stuff of Fnatic's whole org outside the league. I don't even know if you know it inside league. I think you've heard a few stories from certain select people I could guess. And then you've just run with those, even though magically... Luckily, all other 8 orgs suck too, so they can't even get past this shitty Fnatic with totally unqualified people who can't do their job. I know some of the stories about Fnatic clownery in this era. But here's the question. Does a Nemesis know the economics of the Fnatic org? You know, the Fnatic org is at this point in time living off years and years ago. I mean, we're talking almost like 10 years ago now, being actually financially one of the biggest orgs. As far as I know, they're not close to a G2. Now, they can sometimes, if they could really sign a deal, you can go to a sponsor and investor and go, look, we need extra to get this guy, but it'll be worth it because of these deliverables, XYZ. Hence how, like, certain other people have signed massive rosters, which then it doesn't work, so you have to go to the budget roster next year, which is actually also, by the way, one of the points. They don't have unlimited fucking money. You're doing what a fan does now and acting like it's Football Manager, but you're not even understanding, even in Football Manager, you have a budget, mate. So in this scenario, think about it, right? What the fuck are Fnatic supposed to do in these years? They've actually mega overperformed. Remember, only a couple of years ago, they paid mega bucks for Razork, and Humanoid had an insane contract. He's on like LCS type money, I've heard, even though he's in fucking LEC and we're in esports winter now because they just locked in the contract in some nightmare fucking blunt rotation with this cunt and fucking Noah and Razork's just in the middle like, oh God, so fuck me. Then also, let's just add this in. The same roster that I'm talking about, they had to pay millions, blah, 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 all the rest of it, right? That had Upset on it. He's not super cheap. It had fucking Wonder. You know what he was bought for? And also, by the way, like, Hillasang was a veteran, but I've heard he's actually just super chill. He's not a guy who goes hard. So maybe he took less or whatever, but I don't know why he would. He's still an elite player. So, mate, that roster had to cost. And then you got like a big name coach. You've also had multiple coaches as well. We're just going to ignore that. So you've had like basically a bunch of players that load of the roles except jungle and mid. You've had a bunch of coaches. You go all across the place. You can't just rebuild every year or two for millions and millions and millions and get the absolute top players. You probably think you can because to you only care about winning the game. Right? I get that, but that's not reality. But reality is what those people are doing with their jobs and what they're working with, what their resources are. So we're just going to ignore that completely. It's fucking gross, mate. Like, actually, go and find out what the fuck you're talking about before you talk out your ass. Now, look, I mean in the sense of, like, you're wrong. You can obviously say whatever the fuck you like on your stream, idiot. Just like I'm saying whatever the fuck I like. Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? Having a mouth, vocal cords and hair. It's great, and I've got the mic and everything. It's like arguing with people about draft. You don't notice how people, even fans and top pros, do the same shit. Like, they don't necessarily know the players prior for that champion or the scrim results of that champion or even what other people were doing in scrims, but they just guess based on the global meta and what they're seeing in pro games. And so they always think the best teams just draft the best, even though they also have the best players. And then they flame the, like, dark horse team that's, like, competing slightly but loses most of the time, even though they're often, like, limited by style, worse players, don't have as good a star, don't have as good stars, don't have the right roster balance, something flawed, meta switch, etc., not resistant to meta switches. And then also, maybe they're just worse in general. And maybe they need to cheese and gamble, but no, you're thinking they should play like fucking Gen G's draft because that's the correct thing to do. Because again, you're stuck actually in the old world of how LS used to think. At least he's actually sort of updated his thinking to some degree, right? It's like a classic example for me is if you go back to season 8, so it was the year before this guy came into LEC, you had that G2 lineup where I had Hjarnan and Tam, and I almost said Tam Ketcher. You had Hjarnan and Wadid, the famous one chick, and Tam Ketch. And if you remember that lineup, the interesting thing was that bot lane, because it was the Rockat bot lane, you used to look at it and go, neither of them are stars. But it's a mega top side, but I hope it's not a fucking AD meta. So in that scenario, everyone used to flame the fuck out that bot lane because what was their best possible chance to win from the bot lane? It was that Heimerdinger pick for Hjarnan that no one could deal with, and it was obviously the Tom Kench for Wadid so you can make like players across the map, etc. So you used to get people, even pros, saying like, I don't get it. Why don't they just ban Tom Kench and Heimer every game? Because then Perks and Wonder, who at the time were world-class solo carries, would then just get their best meta champions and shit all over you. And it wouldn't matter that you wouldn't give any strength to the bot lane. Sometimes you wanted to even it out and actually challenge that bot lane to do something with those champions. That's just the nature of how the game works. You can't just be so isolationist in how you're thinking about a pick, can you? And also, have you ever noticed how it's always someone else's fault except Nemesis? Both in his teams and the world in general. Everyone's a moron except this guy. I don't think that. I address a lot of morons and fans. I think there's many smart people. I think there's smart people in some of these orgs. I could even tell you some of them, quite frankly, mate. I mean, first of all, you're basically implying people like Peter Dunner, just fucking cretins too. I guess all the guys in BDS, they're just dumb fucks too, right? Playing with a bunch of ERL players. By the way, sometimes even placing ahead of this Fnatic squad that has your boy, fucking what, Humanoid, Razork. These are the best players in the LEC, right? Razork, that is. These are like all LEC talents constantly. Now, here's the thing. Once I'm finished with some of the other names I've got on my hit list, I'll get to this guy eventually. Not that I'm saying that, listen, he doesn't have any, like, outrageous thing of, like, some fucking, you should be fired just for that. But he has the ones where he's the whiner. I've heard the stories, mate. I've even heard his friends make excuses for him or try to, like, blame other people to counteract the stories, even though they've heard the stories too. Like, just look at it on stream for long enough. Yeah, for certain topics, he might be smiling, laughing, he might be having fun. Sure, it's all good. Might be winning the game. If you watch him enough on stream, you can tell he can come off a bit whiny, can't he? A bit sulky, blames others. Seems like he has to get his way. He can only really play the game his way, and the game has to be his way, and that's the only right way to play. Well, imagine he was in a team under pressure, and there was a team better than him, and he perceived them better players and better staff. Fucking hell, I think you're starting to understand some of the issues now, aren't you? Now, the other problem is, he also seems to be someone who thinks he's better than he is, and also, just like his fans, they want to he wants to seemingly exclude himself from the blame, so he gets to go in the category, what, with people like Caps and Perks and stuff? Yeah, okay, bro. Okay. Did you ever win a trophy? I'm missing something. Like a real LEC? No, nothing. No major region. Nah. Oh, I didn't want that deal in LCS. If you heard the fucking teams he turned down, man alive. The ego on this guy. And remember, last time he played in LEC was in 2020. It's fucking 2024. Just forget about it already. This isn't even supposed to just be a Nemesis roast video, but it's turned into one, hasn't it? Now imagine, after all that I've just said, imagine playing with him. Imagine coaching him. Imagine having to lock yourself in with a contract with him. I guess if you did, you'd be incompetent, right? Everyone needs a support network, and mine is, of course, my Patreon community, the Scrominati, who, in many ways, they're the Sonny to my Cher, saying, I got you, babe. So this video and all the others on my channel were kindly supported by the following names: Ahmed Hadjou, Mac Pugnatio Rajcula, Adam Tomlin, Animosity, Jensen Goh, Tosh, Thooorin, and you know it. Jerky's Minion, my main man, always going to be referenced, one of the best patrons of all time. Would you like to ask a question in my AMA? Maybe you want to suggest a topic or a guest to say on my channel? Do you want teasers? Find out who the upcoming Reflections and Talk to Thorin interviews are. Maybe you want to do one of those long discussions where you get to set the topics we talk about. Well, if any of these or others appeal to you, put your money where your mouth is. Join the Scluminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.